Hey guys, welcome back to Heritage Hollow Homestead. I am out here just watering my tomato plants, and I am starting to harden these off so to get them ready to plant out here in the next week or two. So planting season is in full swing. I've had these guys going since late February, and now it's getting within a week or two of time that I could plant them. So I'm starting the hardening off process. And basically what that means is if you've started your seeds inside, you cannot just take them from inside under grow lights and move them directly out into your garden. The leaves on them are not thick enough and strong enough to endure full sunlight. Sunlight is very strong. Even when you have grow lights, that is nothing compared to sunlight. The power of sunlight, and it will basically, we call it sun scald. It's like a sunburn on the leaves. They will turn white if you just move them directly out into the sun after living their entire life inside under a grow light. Their leaves will turn white, will stress them out, and they will probably die. So in order to slowly acclimate any type of plant that you have started inside under grow lights to the outside world before you plant them, you need to give yourself at least a week, possibly more, depending on the weather, to slowly acclimate your plants a few hours a day to growing outside. And how you do that is the first day. So to get them acclimated, the hardening off process basically goes like this. On day one, you move all of your plant starts outside in the direct sunlight for about an hour, and then you move them back inside, back under their grow lights. Leave them under the grow lights the rest of the day like they have been living since the beginning. And then on day two, you bring them outside, put them in direct sunlight for 2 hours that day. Bring them back inside, put them under grow lights the rest of the day, or back into your greenhouse. This also works and needs to be done if you have covers over your plants, like frost covers. You just take all of those off, and those plants have had some protection from the sun. They can also get very stressed or die because of that. So you would want to take the cover off for an hour on the first day and put it back on 2 hours the second day, 3 hours the third day, and then move them back inside, or put the cover back on 4 hours the fourth day, and so on and so forth. By day 7 or 8, they should be able to live in 7 or 8 hours of direct sunlight. And at that point in time, that is when they will be ready to move out and live in the garden. I would recommend letting them spend the night outside overnight, a couple of those nights as well, to get them acclimated to cooler temperatures also. And then especially tomatoes and peppers, when you do plan on planting them out, make sure your soil is warm enough so that does not stress them out as well, especially if you've been keeping them in a very warm environment inside. So that is what I'm working on today. Those are the tomatoes I have started. I will probably be selling some of these. I'm really debating on it. I know that looks like a lot of tomatoes, right? But last year I planted somewhere around 50 tomato plants just for us. And when it comes to pasta sauce, especially pasta sauce and pizza sauce, we are basically out of both of those items, which tells me I did not grow enough tomatoes last year. I do have I probably have a dozen jars of just just canned tomatoes, whole tomatoes, and I can take those and cook those down into pasta sauce, but it'll take several cans of jars of just whole canned tomatoes to turn into what would equal 1 jar of pasta sauce. And so I know just from what I have left over from last year's canning that I did not plant enough tomatoes. And that may sound crazy to think that you could grow 50 tomato plants and not have enough tomatoes. And so one of those problems that I have, I'm kind of weeding out the problems with tomatoes and what type should I grow. It's sort of a learning curve, and when it comes to actually growing all of the products that we actually eat that are tomato based, so sauces, tomato sauce, pasta sauce, pizza sauce, rotel that you would put in like rotel dip and chili, whole tomatoes, and there are a few other things that those tomatoes go into, like some soups that we use, such as that. So when you really start to think about all the ways that you use tomato-based products, even like chili and such as that, soups, you'll really realize, wow, I use a lot of tomatoes. And then once you've ever made your own sauce or soup, you really realize how many tomatoes it takes to make a small jar of tomato sauce. And so that is where it gets into me thinking, should I sell these, or should I figure out a way to plant all of these to make sure our tomato needs are met? One way I'm going to try to get more bang for my buck is by planting all beefsteak varieties and paste varieties. So I am only going to be planting, like I said, beefsteak varieties. These are heirloom varieties. So we have, let's see here, hillbilly, beefsteak, Cherokee purple is a type of beefsteak tomato. What else do we have over here? Actually, I have to read them to remember what all I have planted. Rutgers, hillbilly, homestead. Those are the varieties that I will be growing mainly, and Romas and the San Marzano paste tomato. I don't know if I said that right, but those two paste tomatoes specifically for pasta and such as that as well. So I won't be growing a lot of just fun varieties or a lot of cherry tomatoes. I will just be growing those few really big meaty tomatoes to try to make up, fill some of those gaps, but I really think I'm going to have to plant more tomatoes. I bring this up to you for two reasons making this video. One was to remind you not to forget to harden off any type of plant that you've been growing inside. Don't skip that step. You will kill all of your plants. It will not end well. And so the other reason why I bring it up is just to kind of give you a visual of how many plants you really have to grow to actually. We are a family of 4. We do eat at home the majority of the time, and just how much it actually takes to grow enough food for you to provide your family with certain things that you may eat all the time. And so I think, so that's a lot of tomatoes to plant to supply our family with tomatoes for the year, but that is what's necessary for us to not have to change our diet a lot. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think a lot of people, you grow 1 or 2 tomatoes and you kind of get this false sense of security of like, oh, it'll be fine. I can grow a couple of tomatoes and, everything's going to be okay. But realistically, it actually takes a lot of corn and a lot of tomatoes and a lot of potatoes to really fill gaps nutritionally, whenever you're trying to grow your own food, to actually save money on your grocery bill. And so this is why I don't say this to like discourage you at all, but I rather am saying this to try to, one, be realistic. I always kind of joke around and say I try to be a realist here, an optimistic realist though. But the reality is, if you ever had to grow 50 tomato plants, 60 tomato plants, if you're a large family, 70 or 80 tomato plants, in order to provide your family with what they would need to get through an entire year without having to go to the grocery store, or just to save money for that reason, it's going to be very hard to maintain that many tomato plants if you've never put your hand to maintaining like 5 tomato plants. So my encouragement for you is, this is not to discourage you, this is to encourage you to start now and really hone in your skills and master the skill of growing whatever your favorite things are. Now, if you're a first-time gardener, I absolutely would not recommend that you go out and plant 60 tomato plants this year. You'll be very disappointed. I have, in years past, planted way too many tomatoes or way too many plants of a sort, way more than what I was physically capable of keeping up with because I didn't have the skills I needed to do it efficiently. And so in the end, everything was overtaken by weeds and everything ended up dying or bugs took over, and it was all a waste of time and garden space where I would have been off. And I wish somebody had told me this back then. I would have been much better off if I had started out with a small garden and read every book that I could on growing tomatoes, and absolutely had taken the time to baby those tomatoes and watch every YouTube video I could on how to properly grow a tomato, and just have, just fill my head so full of tomato growing knowledge that I grew the best 5 tomato plants in the entire county. To me, that is a much more valuable skill and better way to start out things than it is to try to jump all in and grow 60 tomato plants at once and them all fail. It's better to have 5 successful ones than 60 failed ones in the beginning. So the first year you grow 5, the next year you can grow 10, the next year you grow 20, and then you just bump it up, and by about year 3, 4, 5, you'll really be able to manage and successfully grow a lot of your own food, because you'll have the knowledge, wisdom, and experience to manage a lot larger garden. So I don't say this to discourage you, but rather to encourage you that within a few years you can get to that place where you're growing enough for an entire year's worth of tomatoes. But don't be afraid to just start out with 5 tomatoes this year and read all the things and learn all the things you can about taking care of those 5 tomatoes. And then, next year grow 15. And then you'll have some to can. And then maybe make salsa for that year. And then the next year you grow 25 and you'll have enough to make salsa and can whole tomatoes. And then by year 3 you'll have enough tomatoes, you'll be growing enough to be able to grow your own for pasta sauce. And that's how you can work up to really just learning how to manage a lot more. But I just want to give you a quick glimpse of the reality of how many tomato plants you would really have to grow in order to actually provide enough food, at least for us. We don't even eat fresh tomatoes, really. We might eat a few cherry tomatoes on our salads. No one in our house, not a single person even eats fresh tomatoes during the summertime. So when our tomatoes come in, we eat a few Cherokee purple tomatoes, like also in our salads, but not like a lot of people do. We don't eat several fresh tomatoes a day. Instead, all the tomatoes that are coming in out of my garden are being canned or preserved, being dried in some form. They are being preserved, even frozen, and then those are used to make our bases of lots of meals all year long. So there's my tips for the day. Nice little tomato talk, and this could you could take that and apply it to anything: squash, beans, anything. Start out small, master growing that, learn all that you can, because knowledge is key when it comes to gardening. Just absorb all the information you can, and then put those skills and knowledge to work, each year growing a little bit larger garden. And before you know it, time flies, you'll be growing a really large garden too. I hope that you guys have a blessed day. See you next time. Bye.